you might be focusing on the wrong thing. It's not so much about the results, external results or internal results. It's about what happens before the results. Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Lorena. I'm a somatic self-concept and identity coach, and I help you bridge the gap between who you currently are or see yourself as and who you desire to be or become. In today's video, we're going to talk about the connection between your reactions to your circumstances, to your triggers, to your emotions, even to your desires, and how that impacts the results that you get to experience, how that creates or determines the outcome of your external environment, of your external experience, and your internal experience too. I felt inspired to create this video because a few things have happened in my life, in my reality over the last couple of weeks, which have really shown me how important it is to understand the connection between your reactions and your external circumstances. Because how I reacted to what I was experiencing had a direct impact on the outcome of what I was experiencing. It could have all gone a completely different way if I'd reacted differently. But before I even go there, I just want to share that I used to be incredibly reactive. I used to be so reactive. I used to often go into anger, even if that wasn't projected at somebody. Sometimes it was projected towards myself, so it was targeted internally. I used to flip really quickly, and especially when I was creating changes or wanting to create changes in my relationships in my life, that had a massive negative impact because I would keep myself trapped in a cycle through my reactions. I would react to the tiniest circumstances, things that I didn't like how they were, or even assumptions that I had. So that wasn't even the reality that I was seeing, but it was how I was interpreting things. And that had an immediate impact on the future of those circumstances and how they changed. And obviously, the more you work on your mindset, the more you work on your state, the less reactive you likely become. You become more aware of your reactions, and so you get to change them. And so my reactions did slowly improve over time, but it wasn't perfect. And there's something that I observe in a lot of people, and that is really a key point for this video that I want to hone in on, and I'm gonna go a lot more in depth later on. And it's that people will try to change their approach to their circumstances, their triggers, their reactions, and their assumptions. But the way they do that is from a level of noticing their reaction and then actively trying to change it. And that's one way to do it, but I'll tell you later on in the video why that approach actually takes a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and it can sometimes keep you in a cycle where you're constantly managing your mind and you're constantly managing your reactions. And there is a way in which you can change your reactions a lot more automatically so that you don't have to consciously keep track of everything all the time, which in the end will then also make your new reactions, your new state of being, and your external experience a lot more sustainable. But I used to do this too. I used to notice, oh, I just reacted to the circumstance. Usually it didn't look like that. Usually it looked like me flipping out. But then post-reaction, I would realize, okay, that was a massive reaction. And usually that would then come with a flavor of guilt or shame, which then created a whole new story and a whole new chain of reactions. But even if that wasn't the case and I was able to forgive myself quickly for the reaction that I've had, my only real course of action from then on was to choose to react differently next time. And that is a fantastic intention to have, but there's a reason it's not that easy to do that. And so often I wouldn't manage. I would have this respectable intention, but when it came to it and I was caught off guard, I would still react in the same old way, and then the cycle would repeat. and I would just go back and forth. And I know that many of you are in this place too, many of the people watching my videos. And I know this because many of you tell me in my DMs. I often hear from you all that you've made progress, but that where you notice you're still coming up against the same patterns is that your initial reaction is still the same, and that it takes a lot of effort for you to manage those reactions and to change those reactions, and that you often notice that it's not working. So if this is you, congratulations, you are a human being. Welcome. Join the club. But there's a way to change your reactions so that you don't have to try all the time, that you don't have to go in circles. And that brings me to these last 2 weeks and that experience that I've had. So the last 2 weeks have honestly been very expansive for me, but they've also been incredibly chaotic. Incredibly magical, beautiful things have happened, but also a lot of chaos. And it was sudden, unexpected things, like I went on a trip and I was 48 hours delayed, so I lost over a day of my travels. I came back home and found my kitchen freaking flooded. Whilst I was dealing with all of this, everyone wanted something from me, and there was a lot of overwhelming and chaotic stuff happening. There's even more to it. I'm not gonna even go into all of the details because it's not really relevant and I could speak about this forever. But I was just confronted with a lot of surprises and a lot of challenges. And I can assure you that a past version of myself would have been so overwhelmed, would have been maybe even frozen by everything that was going on, would have gone through cycles of anxiety, then hope, then calmness. It would have been a freaking journey. But not only did I stay really calm the entire time, I was also able, through the state that I was in, to take action from a really empowered place. And guess what happened? My circumstances, which at times were actually disastrous with some of the things that I was dealing with in a very short time span, my circumstances changed rapidly. A lot more quickly than they would have changed if I had gone through cycles of reacting and then trying to get myself not to react and then blaming myself for my reaction and doing the whole thing that I used to do. So in other words, I didn't have to make myself react in a specific way. It happened naturally. And I only noticed in hindsight, hey, I was really chill throughout this very chaotic time. And look the results it brought me. So with that, I want to go a bit deeper into why it is so important to change your reactions to your circumstances and your triggers. First of all, it's never about the circumstance. It's never about the outcome. It's never about the vision. It's never about the thing. The outcome you desire, that's nice, but it's really about how you feel within yourself, right? Because you're human. Things aren't always going to be perfect. Even if you have the most confident, empowered identity in the world, things are gonna go wrong. Things are gonna get messy. At some point in your life, you're gonna come up against challenges. I know that most of you watching this are somewhere in the age range late 20s to mid 40s, which means you're old enough to have experienced some stuff in your life. And it's normal for that to get triggered in the future. Your body remembers, your mind remembers, your subconscious remembers. So that means, yes, we all have a vision of a future that we want to experience. We have an idea of some version of ourselves that we want to become. And that could be connected to a specific identity that you want to step into, that you want to embody. Maybe it's that you want to become an athlete or an athletic person when that's never been who you are. Or maybe you've been single for most of your life or in sticky relationship dynamics and you want to step into the identity of being a person for whom it's normal to be in healthy, beautiful connections where you're fully met. Maybe it's that type of identity change, identity shift. Or maybe it's less tangible and it's just a self-concept that is more confident, more empowered than you currently are. It's really important to have that clarity, and it's the first step that I encourage you to take is to get clarity on your state, your reactions, and where you're wanting to go. It's the first deep dive I do with my clients in my signature coaching program, Recreate Yourself. It's the first thing that I ask people when they're on a discovery call. You need to know where you're at and where you're wanting to go. So having a vision, really cool, really important. But despite that, what's a lot more important and what you actually really want is to hold that identity, to stay in that self-concept, to fully embody it, to fully immerse yourself into it, to become it, and to be stable in your state of being, even when things are not going well. And on top of that, your reaction determines your outcome. Your reaction impacts your circumstances, your results, your reality. And it doesn't matter whether those reactions are externally focused or internally focused. So there's internal reactions and external reactions. And what I mean by this is that you can be outwardly having a very obvious reaction. So maybe you flip at somebody like I used to do. Maybe you chase after a guy to hopefully get them to do something for you or to become who you want them to become or to choose you. Also something I used to do. Maybe you go into people-pleasing mode, into a fawn response so that you can feel somewhat at peace again. Or maybe you end up settling or you explode with anger. It can look all sorts of ways. But those types of reactions are visible. You can tell if somebody's reactive in that way. It's usually entirely unconscious. Reactions are unconscious. Same with internal reactions. So that's a reaction when nothing really happens externally, at least not obviously or directly, but maybe you internalize it. Maybe you go into self-loathing or negative self-talk and nobody sees it. Or maybe you suppress your reaction and you suppress your emotions through that. And it just festers inside of you. And that can even manifest as physical ailments in the future through the stress and the tension that you're then holding on to. Even if you're not having an obvious or externally focused reaction, even if it's unconscious, which they usually are, you can tell. People can tell. People can feel it. You kind of know when you're not in the self-concept that you want to be in. And when you outwardly react, you can obviously see how that would shape your circumstances, right? How you show up to people impacts how they will treat you, for example. So if you fall into a codependent pattern or you fall into people-pleasing, you have zero boundaries, people will think they can walk all over you. And that's then a self-fulfilling prophecy. Probably not what you want. You probably want to be met. Or maybe you express this anger and you get really aggressive. And then although you're maybe desiring connection, you repel people. You create disconnection. You become isolated. So you can really see the obvious connection between your external reaction and the impact that that can have on your reality, on your external circumstances, on how the people around you show up and treat you. But even with an internal reaction, it's still the same. It impacts your circumstances too, and of course it impacts the way you feel about yourself. I already spoke about how it can manifest in your body, but on top of that, if you go into self-loathing, for example, if you go into a negative spiral that nobody sees, or even you just suppressing emotions and not being honest with yourself, that's not outwardly visible, but it has an impact on your state of being. It has an impact on your magnetism or lack thereof. It has an impact on your aura, and people can feel that. People can feel when you're reactive. People can feel when you're in fear. People can feel when you're not in alignment with who you want to be or who you say you are. If you've ever experienced a situation where you reacted internally or externally and it had an impact on your circumstances or on your relationship, please leave me a comment and let me know what happened in your case. And you're also welcome to send me a DM on Instagram if you prefer to do this privately, but I would love to hear what your experiences are. Before we move on to how to change your reactions and the difference between changing your reactions proactively versus retroactively, I want to invite you to check out my subconscious reprogramming masterclass. It's a free masterclass. It's called Beneath the Surface. It's a great step for you if you want to master your subconscious, which really is what this is all about. this is really how you ultimately change your reactions for the long term. But I'm gonna go more into that in a moment. So I've left the link below. I would love to hear how you're getting on with it. Make sure you take some notes. There's a lot of gold in there. So, changing your reactions proactively versus retroactively. Your reactions are really based on your self-concept. And there's only two approaches you can really take to changing your reactions. Either you do it retroactively, which is what I spoke about in the beginning of the video. You kind of try to catch your reaction in the moment, or you notice that you have reacted and you choose to change that. You choose to react differently next time. You become aware of how you're reacting so that you can change it, for which the first step is really awareness, which is always a great thing to have. But it's also where a lot of people get stuck. A lot of my clients who come to work with me and a lot of the people who talk to me in my audience, I know have a lot of awareness. They are usually not complete beginners and they have seen some of their beliefs and some of their wounds and how and maybe even why they react in a certain way, but they struggle to go beyond the awareness and to actually create the changes in their subconscious in a lasting way. And if you change your reactions retroactively, you're essentially having this awareness and you're attempting to actively choose to react differently every time a circumstance pops up, especially a circumstance you don't like. That not only takes a lot of effort, you're also making yourself do something that goes against your natural instinct. It goes against what feels natural to your psyche and to your nervous system. The second way is to change your reactions proactively. So now you're not waiting for a circumstance to happen and that whole chain reaction to occur and you choosing this time to react differently. Not that there's anything wrong with it, it just takes a lot more effort and sometimes it can bring up shame or regret or guilt or any of these I should have. But when you change your reactions proactively, you don't have to do that. What you do instead is you first and foremost get to the root of why these reactions happen in the way they happen in the first place. That is not a mental process. And that's actually part of the work of changing your self-concept. That's part of the work of changing your identity and the way you see yourself. Because why do you see yourself in the way you see yourself? Because other people have told you, because you've made certain experiences in the past, because you've been programmed, consciously or unconsciously, mostly unconsciously, to think or behave a certain way, or to be a certain way. Your nervous system has specific reactions to its environment. You have emotions that are in your system that you've maybe never felt or that you haven't been able to let go of. Traumatic imprints in your psyche. There's so much because of what you've experienced in the past. And that really shapes your identity. It's not really who you are. It's not all of who you are, at least. Some of who you are. It's not all of who you are. Your nervous system and your subconscious are essentially constantly protecting you from re-experiencing the same patterns that you used to experience, which ultimately, sadly, turns into a self-fulfilling prophecy because it's the only thing that it knows. And so it creates the same experiences over and over again through the same reactions. So that means when you only try to change your reactions constantly, it's kind of like symptom management. You're not actually changing the core. You're not actually getting to the root of where the problem lies. You're not fixing the problem. You're treating symptoms. And as you may know, in Recreate Yourself, I work with my clients to transform their self-concept, to step into and embody with every cell of their being a completely new self-identity. And some of that work that we do includes a lot of work with and on the subconscious, so that you get to break the patterns that have likely been holding you back or keeping you trapped in a cycle or an experience that is repetitive. And what I see over and over again as one of the results from this program is that there's a point where my clients don't have to make themselves react differently anymore. They don't have to make themselves believe something that they didn't before. The reactions change automatically through the changes in their psyche, their subconscious, their nervous system, their state of being. And a change in reactions, it's probably the first indicator that there has been a shift. People are always looking for these external results to show them that something is changing. But the real change is happening when you visibly experience a shift based on how you act differently, how you show up differently, how you move through life differently, before even anything changes in your circumstances. There's always a time lag for that. So if you only take one thing away from this video, it's to not force a reaction. It will not work. At least not long term. A true transformation in your self-concept will automatically change your reactions. And that's when you then get to create different results, a different outcome, a different reality. When your reaction to the same old circumstances changes without you having to make yourself do anything, without you having to make yourself react differently, then you know that you have stepped into a new self-concept, a new embodiment. And that's when you know that the new reality, the new circumstances are really not far off. Next week, we're going to talk about body image and your self-concept. I'm really excited for this video. I'm going to share a lot about my own story there as well. And even if you don't have any issues with your body and you love your body as it is, I highly encourage you to watch it because there will be a lot of personal stuff in there and a lot of gold. And I'll see you next week.